No nation in modern history has projected military power quite like the United States. Its aircraft carriers patrol every major ocean. Its submarines disappear beneath the Arctic ice. Its bombers can strike targets on the other side of the planet within hours. For nearly 250 years, America's rise has been tied to war, from a fragile rebellion against the British Empire, to the trenches of Europe, the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of the Middle East, and now the battlefields of cyberspace and artificial intelligence. The United States built one of the most advanced military machines ever created. But military dominance was never inevitable. Every era of American power emerged from chaos. Every victory created new enemies, and every war reshaped the global balance of power. By 2025, the United States spends more on defense than the next several nations combined. Yet even the world's greatest superpowers eventually face a question history always asks: how long can dominance truly last? This is the military history of the United States. The American military began long before the United States even existed. In the mid-1700s, Britain controlled 13 colonies along the eastern coast of North America. At first, these colonies were profitable assets for the British Empire. But after years of rising taxes, political tension, and growing resentment toward British rule, rebellion became unavoidable. In 1775, war erupted. The colonies faced the strongest empire on earth. The British Army was disciplined, experienced, and backed by the most powerful navy in the world. The Americans had almost nothing. Most colonial fighters were farmers, merchants, hunters, and local militias with little military training. But they possessed something Britain underestimated: determination. The Continental Congress appointed George Washington to command the revolutionary forces. Washington understood that defeating Britain in direct battle would be nearly impossible. Instead, the Americans fought a long war of endurance: ambushes, hit-and-run attacks, supply disruption, guerrilla-style tactics. Over time, the cost of war began exhausting Britain politically and financially. Then came foreign support. France, eager to weaken Britain after previous conflicts, entered the war on the American side. French naval assistance became critical. Finally, in 1781, British General Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown. The impossible had happened. A group of colonies had defeated the British Empire. And from that victory, a new military tradition was born. Following independence, the United States expanded aggressively westward. But expansion came with conflict. Throughout the 1800s, American forces fought numerous wars against Native American tribes as settlers pushed deeper across the continent. The US military slowly transformed from a revolutionary force into a standing national army. Then came another conflict with Britain. The War of 1812 tested the young nation once again. British troops even managed to burn parts of Washington, D.C., including the White House. Yet despite setbacks, America survived, and survival strengthened national identity. As decades passed, industrialization transformed the country. Railroads expanded, factories multiplied, cities grew rapidly. But beneath that growth, political divisions were becoming dangerous, especially over slavery. In 1861, the United States fractured into civil war, the Union in the North versus the Confederacy in the South. It became one of the bloodiest conflicts in modern history. Brother fought brother. Entire towns disappeared into battlefields. The Civil War changed warfare forever. Railroads moved armies faster than ever before. Telegraphs revolutionized battlefield communication. Ironclad warships introduced a new era of naval warfare, and industrial production became just as important as military leadership. Under President Abraham Lincoln, the Union eventually defeated the Confederacy in 1865. But the cost was staggering. Hundreds of thousands were dead. Entire regions were devastated. Yet the war revealed something critical. Industrial power would define future warfare. And America's industrial capacity was growing rapidly. By the late 19th century, the United States was no longer an isolated republic. It was becoming an industrial giant. Steel production exploded, oil fueled economic expansion, factories reshaped the nation's economy, and with economic power came military ambition. American strategists increasingly believed global influence required naval dominance. One military thinker in particular shaped this idea, Alfred Thayer Mahan. Mahan argued that the world's greatest powers controlled the seas. American leaders listened. The US Navy expanded dramatically. Then came the Spanish-American War in 1898. The conflict lasted only months, but its consequences changed American history forever. The United States defeated Spain and gained influence over territories including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. America was no longer just a continental nation, it was becoming a global power. Its military now had overseas interests to defend, and its navy would soon become one of the most feared forces on Earth. When World War I erupted in Europe, the United States initially stayed neutral. Most Americans wanted to avoid another European war, but neutrality became impossible. German submarine attacks on civilian and commercial ships increased tensions dramatically. By 1917, the United States entered the war. Millions of American soldiers crossed the Atlantic Ocean. For many young Americans, Europe became their first experience with industrialized mass death. Machine guns shredded infantry assaults. Artillery bombardments erased entire villages. Poison gas drifted through trenches. The battlefield had become mechanical slaughter. American manpower and industrial production helped tip the balance against Germany. When the war ended in 1918, Europe was devastated. Empires collapsed, millions were dead. But the United States emerged stronger economically, industrially, militarily. And for the first time, America stood among the world's major powers. The next war would change everything. In the 1930s, aggressive powers began expanding across Europe and Asia. Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, Imperial Japan expanding across the Pacific. At first, America once again remained outside the conflict. But on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The shock was immediate. American battleships burned in the harbor. Aircraft were destroyed on the ground. Thousands were killed. The attack united the country overnight. The United States entered World War II with overwhelming determination. What followed became one of the greatest military mobilizations in history. Factories switched from civilian production to war manufacturing. Car plants built tanks, factories built bombers around the clock, shipyards launched warships at astonishing speed. American industrial power became unstoppable. In Europe, American forces joined Allied operations against Nazi Germany. The D-Day invasion of Normandy in 1944 became one of the largest amphibious assaults ever conducted. Thousands stormed the beaches under machine gun fire. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the war against Japan became increasingly brutal. Island battles turned into nightmares of attrition. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Guadalcanal. Each victory came at enormous human cost. Then came the final escalation. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The nuclear age had begun. Japan surrendered shortly after. World War II ended, and the United States emerged as a military superpower, unlike anything the world had ever seen. After World War II, the world divided into two rival superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. This rivalry became known as the Cold War. Unlike previous wars, this conflict was built on tension, ideology, espionage, and nuclear deterrence. Both nations rapidly expanded their arsenals: nuclear bombs, strategic bombers, intercontinental missiles, nuclear submarines. Humanity now possessed the ability to destroy itself. At the height of the Cold War, fear of nuclear annihilation shaped global politics. Children practiced nuclear drills in schools, governments built underground bunkers, entire military doctrines revolved around mutually assured destruction. Yet despite the fear, direct war between the superpowers never fully erupted. Instead, conflicts exploded across proxy battlefields: Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Latin America. Among them, the Vietnam War became one of America's most controversial military disasters. Despite overwhelming firepower and technological superiority, the United States struggled against guerrilla warfare and local resistance. Televised combat footage shocked the American public. For the first time, modern war entered living rooms through television screens. The war deeply divided American society, but even during failure, military technology advanced rapidly. stealth aircraft, precision-guided missiles, satellite intelligence, electronic warfare. America was preparing for the wars of the future. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, the Cold War ended, and the United States stood alone as the world's dominant superpower. The Gulf War demonstrated a terrifying new level of military capability. Precision-guided bombs struck targets with incredible accuracy. Stealth aircraft avoided radar detection. Advanced communication systems coordinated operations in real time. Many analysts described it as the first modern digital war. For a brief moment, America appeared militarily untouchable. Then came September 11, 2001. Terrorist attacks against the United States killed thousands and changed global history overnight. The war on terror began. American forces invaded Afghanistan to destroy Al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. Soon after, the United States invaded Iraq. At first, both campaigns moved quickly, but the occupations became long, costly, and deeply controversial. Insurgencies spread, urban warfare intensified, roadside bombs became deadly threats. The battlefield itself had changed again. Drones now hunted targets from the sky. Special operations forces conducted raids across multiple countries. Cyber warfare emerged as a growing threat. The United States military was evolving into a force designed for 21st century conflict. By 2025, the United States still possesses the most powerful military on Earth. Its defense budget exceeds the military spending of many nations combined. The US Navy controls massive carrier strike groups across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Middle East. Its Air Force operates some of the most advanced aircraft ever built, including the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor and the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. Meanwhile, nuclear submarines patrol silently beneath the oceans. But warfare is changing once again. Artificial intelligence is becoming central to military planning. Autonomous drones are reshaping battlefield tactics. Cyber attacks can cripple infrastructure without firing a single bullet. And space itself is increasingly viewed as a future battlefield. At the same time, rising tensions with China and renewed geopolitical rivalry with Russia are pushing the United States into a new era of strategic competition. The Indo-Pacific region has become one of America's highest military priorities. The next great conflict may not begin with tanks crossing borders. It could begin with satellites failing, power grids shutting down, or artificial intelligence making decisions faster than humans can react. The military history of the United States is the story of transformation through conflict. A small revolutionary army fighting for independence became an industrial war machine, then a nuclear superpower, and finally a global military force capable of projecting power almost anywhere on Earth. Few nations in history have shaped warfare more dramatically, but military dominance always carries a cost. Wars leave scars that last for generations. They reshape economies, governments, technology, and entire societies. And history has repeatedly shown that no superpower remains unchallenged forever, because somewhere in the world the next rival is always rising, and the next chapter of American military history may already be unfolding right now.